we kind of knew each other before.
We did.
Because your mom and my mom were friends.
I think it was our grandmothers.
It may have been.
I think it was our grandmothers were buddies.
I don't know that we've ever really worked together on anything other than Hugh Ainsworth's memorial.
In all our history, broadcast together, been on the same stage together, and we're sitting in a little shack and comfortable chairs, and we're broadcasting for the first time.
We were motivated to do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are both rebels without a cause, or should I say broadcasters without a home, because you recently experienced the warmth of corporate broadcasting, much as I did now 6 years ago, I guess. I'm sorry about that.
No. 4 great years with Spectrum in many respects. Statewide news network. It was the most fun in many respects. Honestly, the most fun I've ever had in my career.
Why?
Because I was on air and I'm not sure anybody was watching. And I figured that out pretty quickly. Corporate in Connecticut they weren't watching, and the news director wasn't paying a lot of attention, I don't think. And I got away with a lot of stuff.
Open field. Woo!
It really was.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of interesting stories. I did investigations. My trip to the border, I don't know if you remember that or not, but I went on a 2-week trip. We started in Brownsville.
Yeah.
Okay. And we spent 2 weeks going all the way to San Diego, and we did stories every day on what was. And at the time, the whole world was watching the border because of the crossings and the absence of control. Right,
the caravans.
It was total caravans. It was literally chaos on the border. And so we went from point A to point B to C, all the way to the other C, and it was just amazing. It was a grind. It was grueling. It was 18-hour days, but it was fascinating. And I did that for Spectrum.
And you learned so much.
I learned so much. I did the political show, the nightly political show. Again, I just did feature stories. I did hard news stories. I interviewed luminaries. I got to interview people live on the air. It was my first real anchor job that I've ever had.
Because you were always a field reporter.
I was always an investigative field reporter.
Yeah,
right.
You were the guy camped outside the council member's home and that sort of thing. And I did a little of that too, but you did way more.
Oh.
Your mantle reflects the excellence with which you did it, because there's a lot of gold up on above that fireplace. The characters that you get to meet, not just the people who are making the world go round every day, not necessarily headlines, but making life happen and not fall apart. You get to meet those people, but then you also get to meet luminaries and noteworthy individuals and people like that. Did you ever find yourself going, I can't believe I'm doing this and they're paying me for it?
Every day,
yeah.
Jody, literally every day. If I wasn't out in the field, I may have been at my desk just writing or listening and logging or something like that.
How did you get, because you also had a reputation for stirring the pot, and I'm being very diplomatic here.
Yeah.
How did you get some people to take your calls? I mean, I know the theory is everybody wants to talk, but you're kind of like Mike Wallace is in the lobby, Brett Shipp on line 1. I'm not sure I'd take the call. And yet you got people to do exactly that.
Because every story started with a victim. Every one. And when you get close to that individual and learn their stories and then discover the intrigue of how it all happened, and you take that story to the people who are responsible, you have leverage. You have the emotion on your side. You have the fact set on your side. You have WFAA on your side. And they either talk to you, come clean, or run. And most of them ran. Most of them said, I don't want to talk because you got the goods on me.
The genius public relations guru, Lisa Lemaster,
yes,
used to say that the worst thing is no comment. I suppose they'd be aware, the people that you were calling, that if they didn't say something, they'd look even worse.
Right. And most responsible people who were the other end of the equation had something to say. But the really, really, really guilty ones and the ones who ended up going to jail.
Those are the ones who ran to the car in the parking lot. Yeah, I remember a few of those.
You've seen a few of those.
Oh, man, that's like stock footage.
The obligatory,
from yours.
Chase them down.
So I got a text from Brett one day, and it simply said, we need to do a podcast. then I thought, oh, Lord, you and I have made a lot of the same adversaries over time, and I'm sure that there are those who hold you as a consummate jerk, at least as many as I have.
Oh, thank you.
If you make all the right enemies, that's something you can say for yourself,
Yeah.
I think. And I think you and I both have.
If you're not taking flack, you ain't over the
You
target.
aren't over the target. But we witnessed something. I don't know that I have ever seen that many city officials, former mayors, council members, elected leaders, et cetera, from the city of Dallas in one place at one time as I saw, primarily because of the initials STU, which seems like it's missing the F. And
ST little F
yeah,
U.
you and I have both experienced Dallas for a long time. You as a native son.
1958.
1958.
St. Paul Hospital, and then the legend grows from there.
I am from Fort Worth and have lived in Dallas for most of my adult life. So we both have been around, and a lot of the local writers that you and I grew up depending on to talk about things that were going on around here have retired, or they've moved on, or they're just not there anymore, or their column inches have been limited, or whatever it is, or they're just talking about restaurants and little else. And so between STU and the fact that there weren't a lot of old dogs around still doing what we used to consume on a daily basis in the morning news and Times Herald, maybe somebody else ought to talk about some of this stuff.
But Jody, is anybody paying attention? Is anybody reading the newspaper? Is anybody aware of what's going on at City Hall outside of what they see on their Twitter feed or on TikTok or on Instagram or Facebook? There is a palpable ignorance in this city, in North Texas, in our country, about what is happening on a day-to-day basis in the halls of government.
Here come these amendments positioned as a way to help the police and a way to help law enforcement and a way to help. And that's not what they're about at all. But people on a light reading will take that away and go, oh, yeah, I'm voting for that, just as you say.
Of course.
A willful ignorance
Well,
that you don't know what you're buying into.
Let's go up 30,000 feet. What we're talking about is on November 5th ballot, at the very bottom of the ballot are, I believe, 18 proposed charter amendments. And all the way down to the very bottom, the last three we're talking about, STU, propositions STU, are all put together by a petition, a citizen's petition, and forced onto the ballot.
And
okay?
I am convinced most of the people who signed that petition had no idea.
All they were told, Jody, my wife was one of them, a close family friend was another. They were all told the same thing. Coming out of Target or coming out of some
Do
Costco,
you support the police?
Do you support hiring 1,000 new police officers? Sign me up. Yeah. Where do I sign? That's what they weren't really explained what Proposition S is. They weren't really explained what Proposition T was, or the minutia of Proposition U, which is, we want to hire more police. Well, it ain't that easy. And that's the story behind the story, is how Proposition U turns out to be a flat-out lie.
It's a Trojan horse.
It is a total Trojan horse. It is impractical, it's irresponsible, and it's even laughable when you look at it and dissect what really it says.
And I'm convinced that a lot of the people who came up with these ideas are not interested in anything other than destroying what they see in front of them because they don't like it. The not too distant past, where we had the Citizens Council.
They're still around.
They're still around.
They're trying to kill ST and U. Keep going.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
What was it John Wiley Price said when they got up the other day? I can't believe I'm up here with all these people I don't like.
Yeah.
Something, I mean.
Yeah, including me.
And that was one of those moments where you think, okay, these people don't agree on much of anything.
I have never seen more unity among a more diverse set of civic leaders in the 30 or in the almost 30 years of covering news in Dallas. And it tells me that everyone who is a responsible civic leader is petrified about what ST and U, if they pass. And, people are just going to go, okay, well, if they're on the ballot, the city must have good cause to put them on the ballot.
That's what usually happens.
Vote for them all. I'm going to be a good citizen.
Happens all the time. Oh, this must be important. I'll just vote yes. Those three little letters, those amendments will shackle the city of Dallas financially. It'll tie it down to the whims of a very small group of people on a moment's notice. And if you don't think your potholes are getting fixed now, if you think that trash piled up and sat there on the curb too long before, Just wait until this gets passed.
Whether you believe the Dallas Morning News editorial guys or not, again, this is being opposed by Republicans and independents and Democrats alike.
And whatever,
all responsible politicians in the city say, don't do this.
Even Laura Miller. Everybody's going, warning, Will Robinson, warning.
Yeah, well, Laura and Mayor Tom Leppert are both on the same page here. Let me read this. Proposition S. This is Dallas Morning News. Vote no. Listen, vote no on S. If enacted, this proposition would spell disaster for the city of Dallas by giving any resident the right to sue the city for perceived violations of the city's charter or ordinance of state law. In other words, it would Dallas would become the only city in the country without qualified immunity. What does that mean?
Y'all come. That means
come on.
Listen,
sue us. Bring it on.
I love our neighbors. We have lovely neighbors. I love them. I'm not sure I want them all in a position to access the ability to shut down the city.
That's exactly what it could do. And more importantly, the millionaire who put this on the ballot, who's sponsoring this, from the Highland Park millionaire, is a guy who sues everybody.
Everybody.
He is a suing machine, and he's the one who wants to sue the city to basically shut down operations and take control of City Hall.
Yeah.
T. This is Proposition T. Use a public survey to reward or fire the city manager. Vote no, says the Morning News. This proposition would make the city manager's employment and compensation contingent on a public survey. Imagine for a moment the annual political campaign over what the survey results should be. Should the city manager be fired or given a raise? And only 1,400 people would participate in this yearly survey to essentially hire or fire the city manager.
Yeah. And it all sounds great. A lot of people are going, I want to see things done differently downtown.
That ain't how it works.
This is not how it works. These amendments are not the answer.
Yeah, we are a representative democracy. We vote for our city council members. They're the ones who review the performance of and either give raises to or fire the city manager, not Joe Blow citizen.
And if you get together 1,400 zealots who don't like A, B, C, or D, and you just start firing the city manager, willy-nilly, who's going to want the job?
Yes, it's going to make it impossible. If this passes November 5th, nobody's going to want to come here and be a great or a city manager of any quality is going to say no. Thank you.
And that's terrifying. Now, what does it say about you? I haven't read this.
So Proposition U, which is use the charter to require the hiring. This is an unfunded mandate, okay? You know what that is. Use the charter to require hiring hundreds of additional police officers. This proposition will sound tempting to many of us who feel Dallas needs to be safer. Again, quoting from the Dallas Morning News editorial board, but read this carefully before you vote. It would require the city of Dallas to budget for at least 4,000 police officers. That's an increase of 800 to 900 officers. That sounds great on its face until you dig into the reality of what it would cost, not to mention the fact that even if we could afford it, this is so important. There aren't enough police recruits available to fill that number. So this year, we're giving police officers a 7% raise. Meet and Confer came together. The city and the police came together and decided on a 7% raise. That's what they wanted. They agreed upon it. And they're going to hire and train 250 new police officers. The problem is we lose the attrition.
Oh, yeah.
We lose 180 every year. So there is a net gain of only 60, 70 officers every year. Well, this says if U passes, we're going to have to find a way to hire 1,900 right now. Right now. Here's the worst part of it. If I can explain this simply, the way they pay for it is all new revenues, year over year, new revenues that come into the city, every penny of that new revenue is going to be dedicated either to the police department and hiring new officers or repairing the damage done to the police and fire pension fund.
Yeah.
There's already a plan to make the deficit, and it's like $2 billion deficit up. There's a way to do that. They've agreed on how to do it. This would take all new revenues that normally go to streets and to libraries and to city services, collecting your trash or recycling or whatever city service you cherish. They're going to get no new money. You hear
None.
me?
None.
No new money. Nothing. That is the time bomb built into you. So that's why everybody's saying vote no.
They
on
want
STU.
They want to destroy the way the city works.
Jody, you're right.
They're not interested in making
No.
it better. They're
No.
interested in wrecking it.
It's sabotage. Let's talk about who they is. At the risk of us both being sued. Well, you can keep your mouth shut. I'll talk. Monty Bennett is the guy behind it. He's the Highland Park millionaire who, for a decade or longer, has really kind of angrily tried to infuse his politics into the city of Dallas, to the school district and city hall. And this seems like nothing more than an unvarnished attempt for a millionaire to get the influence that he, a MAGA Trump supporter, a January 6th denier, vociferous denier about what took place at the Capitol on January 6th.
The word you're searching for is insurrection.
Insurrection is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
He is the only person that I know of who supports ST&U on its on its letter and it's the details of it. He's the only person I know who wants this.
Who benefits from it? Who benefits from it?
I honestly don't know.
I don't either. I think the only benefit to anyone I can see is the apparent joy of messing things up and forcing them to grind to a stop. And I agree that there are a lot of folks out there who, at many times in our lives, want to take a sledgehammer to City Hall. But I agree with
constantly, every day.
What was said the other day at that gathering of former leaders and current leaders, that this doesn't take a sledgehammer to it. It rolls a hand grenade into the middle of it. And okay, as I said, you don't want your streets cleaned. You don't want your
Ron Kirk
trash.
said that.
Yeah. If you don't want your trash picked up, if you don't want your potholes fixed, if you don't want any of the things
Vote for this.
a city needs, here's your chance.
Yeah,
and you know what? There are people for whom that sounds exciting. There are folks out there who are nihilistic.
I was having a dinner with Philip Kingston last night, and that's the exact word he kept using, nihilistic. Did you know Philip?
Yeah, well, we know each other. I'm not sure he is one of my biggest fans because I've gotten into his grill a couple of times over things in the past.
Yeah, I mean, he's very outspoken, but he's very dialed into the manipulations of many people in this town who feel their power is best wielded by force, and so he's very populist. But again, he and you are on the same page on this topic, and this is disastrous. ST&U on the bottom of your ballot, November 5th, and early voting starts October 21st. Is ruinous, disastrous, and
cynical. It's entirely cynical.
It is.
And I'm trying to look. I don't know that we've ever run up on a situation where anyone so cynically tried to control the levers of power to their own advantage.
Yeah, and it's just important to know that in the conglomeration of civic leaders that showed up for the news conference the other day, there were Republicans, there were Democrats, there were independents, there were black, white, Hispanic leaders, past and present city officials, elected city officials, corporate giants were there, industry giants were there. Every major industry, not every, but many major industries. The teachers weren't there, but I know the teachers are opposed to it too. It was such a unified front that every citizen in Dallas that goes to the polls needs to know these people are begging you to vote no on ST&U.
It looks like some of this stuff helps the police. It looks like it solves the pension problem. It doesn't.
It's implausible, it's impractical, and it's laughable.
And that's
because
how
it can't be done.
And that's the sheep's clothing they dress that wolf in. And if you vote for yes for it, get ready for hell,
Yeah.
because it will be. I mean,
Jody,
I just don't get it. I mean,
Jody,
it's like put holes in our own hull and then go out to sea. It
know.
makes no sense.
But here's the problem. This campaign to stop it was so late. I mean, it's such an 11th hour thing that I don't know that you can stop it, because I'll tell you this.
Oh, boy.
A friend of mine who is a liberal, Democrat, populist, plaintiff's attorney, when I sent him notice that this was coming up, he's like, "Oh, I'm in favor of all three." And
Oh,
I
boy.
said, "Why? Why?" Well, because City Hall needs to be shaken up. And,
Yeah.
But okay, this is a highly educated, highly successful plaintiff's attorney who is politically involved, and he knew nothing about the details. He just knew, well, hire new police. That's the bait. Oh, sign right here. We're going to hire 1,000 new police officers. That is a lie. It can't happen.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's behind it, except for they want to make a mess, because they've got to understand there's got to be an intellectual honesty somewhere in the purpose behind this. They've got to know this is going to screw everything up.
Maybe that's the idea. If you screw things up bad enough, you wreck it, then you can rebuild it the way you want it to look.
What's the word again?
Nihilism.
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 Nihilism is a philosophical, this is Webster's.
Oh, you're looking it up?
Yeah, nihilism is a philosophical viewpoint that rejects fundamental aspects of human existence, okay, such as knowledge, morality, or meaning. It's often associated with extreme pessimism or radical skepticism.
Yeah, radical skepticism.
All right. Wow.
Radical skepticism.
Wow.
Do you want to make it possible for a small number of people in the PTA meeting to shut down the school?
Yeah.
That's what's going, but some people do. A lot of people do. And I think you may be unfortunately right. I think it may be, if not too late to stop this.
I don't know how you wage a campaign. I'm in charge of the social media messaging, the video messaging. I've been kind of tasked with doing that. So I put out 10, 12 videos that basically try to explain. And I'll continue to put these videos out, but I don't know how widely they're being distributed.
Right.
I don't know. They haven't gone organic or viral or I don't know how many people are seeing these. But if you don't put it out on social media, if you don't send out mailers, yard signs, TV ads, you're going to get beat by this guy because he has so much money. He's already out there.
And he's willing to burn it. By the way, why did you run for office? Why did you do that?
I think that I had a pretty good reputation as a fighter for justice.
But you're also widely known as that guy who shows up and sticks a microphone in somebody's face.
Yeah, and people like that.
Well, some people do, but usually not the ones you're going to be working with on Capitol Hill.
My biggest checks, I swear to God, you can go back and check, the most money and the biggest checks came from Republicans who supported who I was.
Sanity?
As a human being, and the fact that they didn't really know what my politics was from watching me on Channel 8, because I went after John Wiley Price as hard as I went after Pete Sessions, who took a ton of money from the payday loan industry. Did a whole expose on Pete Sessions taking money from payday loan. Think what you will about Mayor Eric Johnson, which is another topic that we can get into.
And I do.
But Mayor Eric Johnson came out a few days ago and said, you know what? We should do the responsible thing here and vote them all down. Vote them all down because they were done in a vacuum. They were done hastily, that some are really good. But if people start deciding that one is good, they're going to say, oh, we might as well vote for them all.
Yeah.
He says, and just about the entire city council says, vote them all down. Just get them. We'll start over. Too.
He is absolutely right. Now, whether he said anything too late, that remains to be seen. But there's so much stuff we could talk about, and we spent a long time talking about one subject, or more or less one. I admire and respect your courage in running for office, because that is not for the faint of heart.
Oh, no. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Jody, it's the hardest thing. I only did it for 3 months. It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
I go all out, and I was going all out, and I was balls to the wall for 24 hours, 90 days, 7 days a week. It was rough, but I learned a ton, and I never, ever, ever will regret walking away from my beloved WFAA to do something for my country and for democracy. I will never regret that.
It was a pleasure seeing you on the 75th anniversary celebration, too.
I was really happy.
That
they
was
included
really
me. I thought they
well
wouldn't
done.
include me.
Did you not? Did you not think they'd include you?
No, I pissed them off when I walked out in the middle of my contract.
There's my shocked face.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was very pleased to see you on there, and they did a whale of a good job on that. And they
How do you do
touched
75 years
I don't know.
in 48 minutes?
You know, Channel 5's 80th is coming up in 2.5 years.
I believe it.
80th.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I'd just love to crawl through all the archives, and that was the cool thing about the special that 8 did was there was so much great stuff. Oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that.
You know how meat-packed it was? We saw Scott Pelley for a flash frame.
I know.
A flash frame of the Scott Pelley. That's how much history there is in
The guy who went to, and that's the other thing. I have to say this. 8, of course, but all our stations around here have always had such an incredible abundance of talent that we're spoiled in this market. And Spectrum was just more of that. And, one of the cool things about that job that I envied was how many young people you got to work with, because I have that blessing in my life right now, too. I get to work with a lot of people who are about half my age, and I learn so much from them every day.
But what have they learned from you?
Well,
More
I think my responsibility is more
that's your responsibility, is showing them the way, Jody.
Oh, gosh. We're all in deep shit now.
The grizzled sage, Jody Dean, with a big Santa Claus beard and the booming voice.
Do you know how
they love you.
And this is, I have people who, when they hear my name, sing my own radio jingle to me. And I don't know what to do with that. I'm very flattered, obviously, but I'm sure you do too. I mean, if you're if you're standing there in the checkout of a store and someone's next to you and recognizes Brett Shipp, they must be wondering about the quality of goods they're about to take to their car. Like, why is he here?
What in my basket is he investigating?
It's a funny job when you have a go bag in your car, isn't it?
That is such a great point. When you have a go bag in your car, in your trunk, it is the sign that your life is an adventure.
Yeah.
And that is the thing, man. We don't really have time to talk about my adventures.
Please continue.
But that is the most delicious, satisfying, glorious part of the reporting industry is never knowing where you're going to be on any given day. And literally, you could end up on the other side of the world. It almost happened when Dirk Nowitzki won the MVP in 2006, and they were playing Phoenix. They were in Phoenix in the NBA Western Conference Finals. And as soon as it came out that Dirk won the MVP, they sent me to Würzburg, Germany, like on a plane, go now. We want a story on Dirk's background, his town, his family, his friends. And boom, the next day I was in landing in Frankfurt and taking a train to Würzburg. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I packed more than a go bag, though.
Well, yeah,
I got time to go home.
But I'm sure that you have gotten to that point in your life as a professional where you thought to yourself, if I can go to Europe and live for a week out of a backpack, then I have accomplished something with my life.
9/11. 9/11.
Yeah.
They said, pack a bag, you're going to New York City. And it was just as the South Tower fell. And I was just like, just totally stunned, like everybody else on this planet. Rented a van at Caps there on 35, and we were on our way to New York City, and we got there 24 hours later. And that was, God, I mean, that's the prime example of having the go bag.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
You never know.
Mine was Waco.
Oh, God.
Remember how cold it was that day?
Oh, yes.
Little snow flurries falling and that sort of thing.
I was in New York City. Actually, I was working at Channel 4 at the time, covering the first World Trade Center terrorist attack. The bomb had gone off in the basement of the World Trade Center on that Friday. And so I flew to New York to cover that. And it was Sunday morning when I was feeding a package back, and they said, you need to get back here right away. And I'm like, why? We got to stay here a few more days and do stories. Get back here now. And we jumped on a plane in Waco.
That's the only thing about our business that I found difficult to deal with, is that very often tragedy means showtime. And it's very easy for some people in the business to lose the perspective of their own humanity. I remember when we came out of the National Cathedral ceremony right after 9/11, Renee Seiler and I were doing the news that day, and we went local right after they did the national coverage. And at the very end, they sang, "It Is Well With My Soul," which is one of my, right. And so I mean, 10, 9, coming back in 5, 4, 3, and Renee and I are both wrecked.
Yeah.
And you gather yourself and you keep going and you do it. But I've always thought that, television stations ought to have a grief counselor on staff, or at least on call. I'm sure they do now, most of them. But
I remember how emotionally scarred I was. In fact, we all were. There were 3 of us who left that morning, probably around 11 o'clock. We rented a van. It was me, a producer, Meredith Shucker, and my photographer, Stephen Kanika. And we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know we were going. We didn't know what was going to happen next. We just knew that we were going to New York City, where it could happen again. And after 10 days, really sooner than that, probably 8 days, we were done.
Yeah.
We were cooked. Our emotions were baked. And it was not that we were victimized, but we were interviewing every day, embracing, holding on to, and hugging victims' family members every day, and crying with them and holding their hands and being with them. We couldn't be reporters. We had to be human beings because our nation had been attacked. It was the most emotional thing I've ever been through in my life.
I remember being at the pile and standing next to Doug Fox, in fact, from Channel 8 at the time, watching as they brought the child-sized body bags out of what was left of the Murrah building. Events like that victimize everyone. They, not just the dead, not just the wounded and the injured, but also the witnesses and the survivors. And, I think over the last 40 years, I think it was Lincoln who said that whenever something is presented to him, he would bind it north, south, east, and west, and then decide what he thought. We aren't allowed that luxury of time anymore because the news cycle is 6 hours now, not 12 or 24 as it was for so long. And we're all victimized by that stuff. And I think there's an increasing mountain of that behind where we are now. And I don't know how that dam is going to break or that pressure is going to be relieved, but I am interested in people who are there to do that rather than make the aftermath worse. And we seem to have a lot of people right now who want worse, and that's why we're doing this. We might have to come up with a name for this if you like.
I've already thought of the name.
What is it?
I don't know. What
did
you say?
No, I said, you said Shipp and Dean. I said shit for brains would be more like it, but we'll answer to either. Listen, man, I thank you for doing this. And we got to do it again because there's so many other things we need to talk about. You have kids. I have kids. I want to see them grow up in a world with more freedom, not less. Maybe we can at least lend our voice to the conversation.
I don't think there's any maybe to it. I think we've already started it.
Our moms would be so proud.
That's
our
right.
Our moms would be so happy.
That's
right. Look,
right.
they're finally playing together.
That we are playing together.
Good to see you, Brett.
More to come.
More to come.